Sorry for the weird angle, just trying to get the stream started. So going live on Facebook or via Facebook soon. And just sharing the links to the Just Scaling page and the Just Scaling group. So here we go. Let's share to a group. And then I'm going to go to that group and then just share it with some other groups because they might be interested. We'll see what people say. And yeah, just gonna pop that in a couple of groups. Just want to find the Scattergun one, because that's probably the people who are most interested in this. There we go, cool. Right, probably help if I go and actually grab the Scattergun. So we can do chassis and links first, and then we'll sort the shell out later. Shell's feeling a lot tougher now. It's got some resin and some fiberglass in there. A couple of extra layers. Just got to drill that through. Cool. Cool, well, tell me if the video resolution's alright, because it is what it is. Now you can't see my head again because I've got the camera somewhere else, but trying to make sure that you can see this thing. So we'll get it up onto some stands, and this time I've actually remembered to get rid of my address on my parcel. So I bought all the spare links that are available from Tamiko, but they are the Defender links, and so they had them for like €6 a pack, so I bought like 4 or 5 packs with the idea that I'm going to mix and match these to find links of the right length for what I'm going to be doing. And so I just need to find the spare ones I've pulled out already. So I've opened one pack. I'm just going to get all the links and all the hardware out. Probably not going to use the GPM hardware. Been having a few issues with that stripping. But we'll see. So, don't need the bags anymore. So what I'm going to do is get the rear wheels off. Oh, bit of a throat today because I've been running. Going to get the rear wheels off, then get the rear links off, measure them all up, check them against the GPM ones, and then go from there. If you do join the stream or you're watching the playback, just chuck a comment in and say hi. I'm just streaming it so I get used to talking to the camera a bit more, get a bit more natural, and also so I stop using so and all the time. So just practicing that self-editing in my head, which so far seems to be going all right. Now the live stream from yesterday is still being processed by YouTube because I put a load of blurring on my address. Because as much as I would love people to send me stuff, I'm not sure how weird people are on the internet, so putting my address on there probably is a bad idea. Not saying that you guys are weird, but you know, you never know who's watching this. Right, wheels are off. Let's get some links off. All getting a couple of playbacks from people, so that's a good start. People are starting to watch. And we're just getting the top links off first, then we'll have to undo the sliders, turn them round, and then do the bottom links. And actually, I'm glad I'm doing this because I've just realised some of the bolts weren't exactly tight, which is bad. I use these drone aluminium standoffs as spacers, so wherever I can, where there's not a drive shaft in the way, tend to put one of those spacers in between any suspension components, just to stop them from moving or flexing and not having to use the little nylock bolts all the time. Really loving having an electric screwdriver as well, because it means that I can do a lot more and not hurt my wrists so much. Before anyone gets any weird ideas, my wrists and forearms hurt because I sit on a computer all day, and then my hobbies are calisthenics and BMX, so tend to use my forearms quite a lot, and then I've got small children that like to jump around and be carried and chased, so it all takes a toll. And I'm no spring chicken now. I'm sure, I hope I look younger than I am, but I am 38 and starting to understand why people talk about aches and pains as they get older. And there'll be people younger on this going, what's he on about? And there'll be people older going, he's got no idea. But, you know, you are where you are. Right, so just loosening off the sliders to be able to get the others out. In fact, no, I don't need to do that. I've realised I've put them on a different way, so it doesn't matter. So I'll just bob this one back in, then work on getting those off. No one watching yet. I am my only concurrent viewer. I wonder if YouTube counts me as a concurrent viewer. So if you are watching this, say hello. If it's just me talking to myself, then yeah, whatever. Yeah, my throat feels really sore. I used to run a lot, used to run about 40 to 50 miles a week. The last year or so, haven't done that at all. Nowhere near that, probably less than 40 or 50 miles in a year. So my wife's decided to start running, even though she said she never would. And I'm getting dragged out to follow her. But today she went out, and then I had to go out when it was my lunch break, and let's just say I went a bit too fast, a bit too quickly, and need to work back into it. Running is one of those things that I never thought I'd do, and then I had 2 years where I ran 2,500 miles in 2 years, and loved it, and thought I was a runner for life, and then just stopped, probably because I'd run enough. Oh, and the nice thing about live streaming is I don't have to turn my phone off either, so I can still check my messages. And all my messages are YouTube telling me that I'm live, even though I can see YouTube is telling me that I'm live, but hey ho. Right, let's get these links off. So ooh. Then I'm going to start measuring links. I'm going to measure my new links against the ones that I intend to put on there, and just basically see if I can adapt links for a 324 wheelbase to fit my current wheelbase, which is somewhere between 313 and 324. I'm not entirely sure. I've just tried to make stuff fit and then cut the shell appropriately. when you're going for like the semi-comp crawler look anyway, you can't really run the guards or anything else. Oh, isn't that nice? My wife's saying hello. Hello. She's going to get very bored very quickly, and hopefully she's skipped over the bit where I've said how much everything's cost. Right, so I've got the links off, and going to just make sure that these bolts are back on, so when I put this to one side I don't lose everything. And I'm going to find some calipers somewhere, start measuring. Right, that can go there. Oh, look at that, some calipers. So don't say so all the time. The links that I've got are the GPM aluminium links. I was a bit dubious as to whether to get aluminium links or not, but they've come and they actually feel quite strong. And they did claim that they were 7075, so we'll be putting that to the test at the weekend to see how strong they are. Some of the links are longer than others, and some of them have got different rod ends on them because they're designed for a Defender. So I'm going to try and group them by the different styles. So that's a pair. I mean, they write GPM on them, but they don't necessarily say which one's which. So just got they're the short ones, they're the long ones. So I've got two long ones with straight rod ends on both ends, two long ones with curved rod ends on both ends, not even sure if I'm going to use those, and then two short ones. And then I've got another pack so that I can pick the right sizes for me. So now I'm going to... oh, my voice is going. So I've got two lengths of link that I'm using on the back of the Scattergun. So I'm now just going to measure the ITI of these and see which links kind of would work for me, and go from there. I'm not going to change the ones on the front. I would like to have high clearance links on the front, but I'm still working on the skid for that. I've got a replacement piece for the in the works skid coming, and that'll let me put the motor a bit further forwards, and so when that comes I'll be changing the geometry yet again, so I'm not going to mess around with those. I'll just leave those as they are. Right, let's get a rough approximation of link sizes. So that's the shorter of the two links. That is about 103.5. So hopefully that one's going to be too long. That one's possibly slightly longer. So I'll think about those. The front links are far too short. They seem to be, in fact it was 130.5. They seem to be 113. So let me measure these. Right, that's the shorter. I've lost a link. Right. So the shorter one is 114, and the short links from the front, it looks like, are 113. But these are extendable links, so I can extend those, so that's perfect. Those high clearance links will replace my I think I've used those as the top, as the lower links. So I'll be able to get these high clearance links on, so that's great. I'll go over why I'm using high clearance links in a minute. Just going to measure these up. In fact, I'm just going to eyeball them. Eye to eye. Yeah, that's great, actually, because my wheelbase looked like it was slightly too long. And it was too long by about 2 or 3 millimeters. And both sets of links are 2 or 3 millimeters short. So this is going to be really good, because it's just going to give me that tiny bit more turning circle and agility that I wanted. While at the same time possibly even increasing the strength, because I can see these two links are two different thicknesses, and I hadn't noticed that before. So I think on a TRX maybe the upper links are a bit lighter, so they're a bit thinner, but I've been using these the wrong way up, so this is actually going to lower my centre of gravity. I'm going to just look at where my scales are, because I want to know what the weight difference will be. Now if you're trying to save weight by using links, you're probably taking it a bit too far. But I've got these two sets that I'm going to use. And my old ones. So if I pop my old ones on first, my old links are 55.5 grams. My new ones are 35 grams. So I'm going to save 20 grams off the back part of this crawler, which shifts that weight forwards. But also, the links I was actually using the heavier links at the top. And those two links there weigh the same as all 4 links I'm going to put on. So actually all of my weight is coming down and forwards now, which is hopefully going to help it climb up some more stuff. Maybe I might tease some of the people who've got Capras and see if I can get up some Capra lines, because once you give them a bit of a tease, they start doing really horrible lines. And that's always a good way to learn, is to not obviously tease people, but to challenge them to push themselves so that you can see if you can keep up. Now the theory behind a curved link is that you get the link out the way of the axle. And actually, because we're using plastic axles, plastic does slide quite well. Ideally I'd be running stainless steel axles, but I'm not sure I want to bother with that upgrade at this point in time. I quite like the fact these Traxxas ones seem to be indestructible. One of the great things though is when you have normal straight links, as you're going over something, you're sliding on the links, and the links being a static object, that sliding motion is having friction along the length of the link, which is why you find your links might get a bit chewed up. So that's why these links especially look like hell. And have, I mean, I don't know if the camera is going to pick it up as well as it could. They should be black, they should be all black, and some of them barely have any black on them at all because the anodizing's been ripped straight off. Now a curved link gets out the way of your drive shaft, so you've got no friction on your link. But the most important part is, because the drive shaft is rotating, as that's dragging on an object, because it's rotating, it's actually reducing the friction, because it's not allowing it to drag. The rotation is reducing the friction coefficient. And so that means that high clearance links mean your drive shafts get sacrificed, but by being sacrificed you slide over stuff, and then you can be like me and run a stupidly low belly and essentially drag the belly over stuff. So, I keep saying so, I've got to stop myself from saying so. I am going to try just test fitting these 4 links, which will tell me whether this whole thing is completely futile or whether it actually has some kind of benefit. I'm going to start with the lower links and then put the upper links on afterwards. Mostly because I find it easier to get the lower links on. I'm just putting some of the screws to one side, and I think I need to find a slightly longer bolt. Hopefully I've got an equivalent. Yep, I have. Great. So, oh, stop saying so. I'm going to put my links so that I think I'm going to go so that the knee is at the back for the lower link, and then to be able to get my links quite close to each other without bumping each other, because that gets it right out the way of the drive shaft at the front. I might check both ways actually, because I might get more benefit. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one on one way and one the other way just to see how they go, but then when they get actually fitted properly, I'm going to have one knee facing forwards and one knee facing backwards, or if I decide them to do the other way, do it the other way, because then as the links are moving, they don't sort of nudge into each other. If you have them both the same way, you do run the risk of them sort of crossing, especially with the kind of geometry that I'm running. So yeah, I'll put these on the opposite way, and I've got a nice long bolt in here that allows me to test fit these without having to worry about them too much. do on that side, and then we'll just pop the other side on and then check the side profile and see how that goes. Looks like I might be a bit too early to get an audience today. Hopefully people will watch it on catch up. We'll see. This one will be available straight away because I've not been daft enough to leave my address for the public to see. Kieran, if you're watching this, I think it was Kieran who made the comment. Thank you for notifying me about that, because I would have not noticed and been horrified when I did. Right. I run a traditional pinion angle, so there's no actual benefit to having these links either way round. That's interesting. Yeah, there seems to be no... One isn't better than the other. I think I prefer the knee further back, because that seems to be the more traditional way to do it, and gives me just a tiny bit more clearance further back. I'm not sure. Yeah, this could go either way, I'm not sure. So just trying to work out which way I put the knee for the bent links. It can go both ways. I don't know, maybe say in the comments. I've got one on both, one on each way, to try and assess what's going to give me the best. Ultimately, as they move around the pivot points, so it doesn't matter which way the knee goes in terms of the geometry, it's more in terms of clearance. And in fact, when I'm slamming my axles, just trying to think of weird situations I'm going to get into. Yeah, I'm going to go with the knee at the front, which seems to be opposite to how most people do it, but we'll find out. Hello, if you've just joined, feel free to put anything in the chat box. It does pop up in front of me. My laptop is just there for me to see. Right, that's cool. So we've got the two rear links on. I'm not going to tighten them up yet. I'm going to get the other links on first. Just try and just basically get a feel for it. It's just going to go together loose. I'm going to put the top links on now because that's a relatively easy task and will give me some kind of indication as to whether this is all going to go together. So doing them on a Scattergun is the same as doing them on any other TRX. They go into the centerpiece. That's about it really, and I was about to install the wrong ones, so they can get lost, and yeah, in they go. Yeah, so I think I'll install them with the knees the same way, and that's going to allow me to pivot up and down. They might be too long, but they're aluminium, so I can cut them down. Needs must. Right, get the other one in there. Looks a bit funky at the moment because it's kind of going against the standard kind of way that people install them. We'll see. We'll see. Right. Yeah, I mean that's looking all right. That's actually looking not too bad. Just wondering where I've put some of the screws, but never mind. Oh no, this was held on by the spacer. That was it. Just trying to look for the bolts that I used to put these on, but turns out that I didn't. I used the spacer to hold them together. And it looks like these balls, these hollow balls, are slightly bigger than the Traxxas ones. So I might have to just pull the legs apart slightly. Right. Oh, I've lost all of my concurrent viewers. That's interesting. Including myself. Apparently I'm no longer watching my stream. How bizarre. Oh, it's just YouTube freaking out. It's all gone back to normal. Right, we've got our links on. They're all sort of back to front. The next thing to check is pinion angle, but I'll probably just make sure that these struts are on first and then check all of that over. Still editing the video for these GPM hubs and how you can set your suspension up to be super low because of them. The problem is it's got about 30 minutes worth of footage and I'm trying to make it more watchable. So in the meantime I'm just doing lots of live streams to see what people actually like watching. Okay. So we've got a pen spring mod on this. Video went live yesterday for pen spring mods, and I'm just going to check pinion angles. So because the front's really sprung, you know, has a serious pen spring, I've just got to force that down to try and work out the pinion angle. Because otherwise, I can't get the right ride height for the rear. So I'm just going to push that down. Try and grab hold of it, pull the front up. Right, great. So, yeah, the whole diff is pointing backwards, which massively shortens it. So what I'm going to have to do is extend the rear links, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with that. They're not fouling each other and they're not bumping. Now these GPM ones are really good because I can just do up the bolts and put them on, and these links, what they've done on the links is one of these ends is reverse threaded, so you can actually put them on your crawler and then just roll this link round, and because one end's reverse threaded and one's normal, they'll either loosen or tighten, which is really cool. I like that because it means I can play with my geometry while it's actually on the crawler. But because I was sensible, I actually didn't do the bottom links up in the first place, so I can hopefully find out which way goes reverse and sort of get them started, because they're always a bit stiff when you first get them started, and then once they get going they're actually quite easy to work with. So yeah, that's because they tend to wind them in quite tight in the factory. So I'm just getting that factory kind of freshness loosened off, and then I can put those links back on and start wiggling them round until they're in the right place. Now they do say that you can just poke a tool in and turn them, but I do struggle to find the right size tool, he says, and then finds the right one. Yeah, that's a bit bendy. Find a little one. Yeah, that'll do. Yeah, and as I thought, I was going the wrong way with that one, so cool. Right, that's loosened off. What I'm going to do now is get them on, get them bolted up properly, and then just turn them round until they're the right length, although I think I'm about to find that because I've got these so close to the chassis rails that I won't be able to turn them round, but let's just give it a test. Yeah, well, that works. That's great. That makes setting up your geometry a lot easier. And it's just scuffing on the chassis as it goes round, but the first time out these are going to get smashed to hell anyway, so it's not worth worrying about. If you're worried about scratches on your crawler, then you do want to worry about whether running like a Scattergun chassis and getting maximum performance is for you, because this chassis does perform amazingly, but it gets you into places where the risk level's like super high, because you can climb up crazy things and before you know it you're tumbling down backwards. Which is part of the reason I'm changing the pinion as well, because I go a bit too fast. And when you go a bit too fast and suddenly find traction, that's when you flip over backwards, and that's caused me a lot of fixing. That's great. So I think one more and then that is perfect. So yeah, so they are staying right out the way all the time, even though I've got the knees in a different place, but that's more... Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm losing travel because it's catching on my chassis brace, so I might have to move that chassis brace. Try not to throw my tools on the floor. So I thought this might be the case. Having the higher clearance links puts them where they're going to bump into the chassis brace. It's not the end of the world. Probably don't need this brace. I do have two other braces in there, and I can move it to a more useful position anyway. Yeah, that's much better. So now we can get right in. And actually, now it's done that, now I've got that extra clearance, I've realised that these lower links probably want to be the other way round. Oh no, they are completely out the way of that drive line. If I've got a wheel on though, Try not to throw my wheel nuts on the ground. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to flip them round and then get on with bolting it all together. But I think I've got the right pinion angle now. Pinion angle is really important because it affects how much power you can get down. But especially with portals, it affects your wheelbase because of the angle that the portals are running at. And this front pen spring mod's really strong. So what I've tried to do is, while I'm at full extension of travel, making sure that my portals are, well, on the rear, perpendicular to the ground. And on the front, because you've got the caster hub, just making sure that the diff has the same angle and the pinion's the same angle as the rear pinion. So they're sorted. So yeah, we're going to swap the lower links round because I've just got that wrong. But I mean, it's all trial and error anyway, isn't it? So just have to whip these suspension bits off. But that's also why I didn't do up the bolts on the lowers anyway on one end, just to make this process easier. And hopefully people can hear me and hopefully you can see me. It's telling me that the video resolution's a bit low, but that's because I've set it to a low bitrate because I'm in the garage and I don't want it to stutter. So yeah, let me know in the chat if you prefer to have higher resolution so you can see what I'm doing but it's a bit stuttery, or whether you like the lower resolution and you can see me moving and it's a bit more natural. It's all personal preference. Okay, talking about personal preference, yeah, I like that. Yeah, I really like that. That looks way better. Right, we'll do some Loctite. We'll make sure that these are Loctited on so it doesn't fall off on Saturday and people laugh at me as my crawler falls down like a little spider with its legs dangling around. Which I have footage of from the hard lines at Armscliff. I do have footage of it falling down and spitting links out. And I've fixed those links. And then annoyingly just taken them off and replaced them. Cool, right, that's one done. We'll get this other side done. Get the shocks on, and then probably do the pinion. I don't know what else to do tonight. I'll answer any questions that people have, and I'll also probably go inside and watch some Netflix and have a cup of tea. Just depends on whether I get any questions or not. Thanks to everyone that watched the stream yesterday. It's actually the live stream itself has really helped me with the YouTube algorithm, and so I woke up this morning and looked at how much I'm being recommended by YouTube, and that's gone up huge. And I can see here that the average view duration is around about 7 or 8 minutes, which, given I've been streaming for 40 minutes, I should be disappointed with, but actually it all contributes to helping me grow the channel, so I appreciate it. That's not because I want to be a YouTube millionaire, but the more people that see it, the more feedback I get, and it's practice, it's motivating. It's motivating to know that people actually want to see what you've got to say. But it is very strange sitting in your garage, talking to a camera, staring over at your laptop every now and then. And also I've used a much more powerful power source for the camera today, so hopefully we won't lose the battery. It's gone down to 2/3 battery, but it's still charging, so who knows, we'll keep trying. Right, they're on, they're straight. I'm just going to double check the length of the calipers in case I got one of these wrong as I was unscrewing them. So that's 78.7mm, and that's 78.6mm, so perfect. Right, we'll get the nylocks back on to hold those lower links on. Then I think I've got to do a bit of Loctite on the upper links, put the wheels back on, and then start messing around with pinions. Unfortunately, the links are a bit too long for me to fit them to the front, but the front links are so short that actually they don't sit proud of the drive shaft, and I can see that they've received very, very, very little abuse. So I'm assuming that it's skidding along on the drive shaft, which, as I said earlier in the stream, is what I want it to be doing. You know, the drive shafts are made of plastic and are spinning and have a really low friction coefficient, whereas links, especially aluminium links, you know, if these catch, I am stuffed. But you know, any link is not moving, and it's a long piece of metal, so it's going to drag a lot more than a spinning drive shaft, especially a spinning plastic drive shaft. Oh, and I was talking to someone at the week, I think it was this weekend or maybe the weekend before. If you've got a TRX and you've bought like the underbelly plates and the pumpkin covers, we both agreed that taking the pumpkin covers off was better, because they create like a flat profile across your pumpkin, which actually reduces the amount of clearance you've got. So you gain protection, but you lose clearance. The middle ones are absolutely fantastic, but some of them say they're stainless and actually they're aluminium. So it is worth checking if they are stainless or aluminium, because if they're aluminium, you're getting protection, but they'll also stick to rocks, and they'll stick really badly and just make it really hard to get over anything, to the point that you have to, well, even worse than a belly dragger, you have to like gun it over stuff, which means that the next obstacle you're coming up to, you're hitting it fast and a bit rapid. The geometry on this is an interesting one. So I've got two links that are like a V shape and the other links almost run parallel. What this actually does is change the roll axis. So instead of the roll axis being a function of something around here and running down in a line, it actually makes the roll axis further up. It doesn't really affect too much as you're climbing, but actually when you're coming down a hill or side hilling, having that different roll axis and having the roll axis taken way away from your centre of gravity stops it from flipping over so easily. But the downside is the buffer, or the amount of degrees of change between not rolling over and rolling over is much reduced. This thing will keep leaning and leaning and leaning and leaning, and then it doesn't give you any notice and just goes. So you have to really remember how far it can go and be aware of how far it can go. Whereas like the G500 and other trucks that haven't got that kind of geometry, they've got more traditional geometry, you start to see them lifting a wheel or tipping slightly, or you know, it's a bit more predictable. But what you lose in predictability, you gain in ability. And so I'm sort of learning with this truck, it's much harder to drive when you're really, really trying to push it, but it's much more rewarding because it'll do things that I never thought I'd be able to do with a TRX, which is fantastic. Not that a TRX is bad, it's just that the suspension geometry isn't as good as say an SCX 10, because of the fact they've put quite long shocks on it. But then you've got the portals, and then you've got a lot of belly clearance. So for people that just want to do lots of trailing, or just want to be a bit belligerent and not worry too much about the line choices, the TRX is fantastic because it's just fun. You can go a long way where the truck is quite forgiving, but then there are certain points where it just falls over backwards or has issues. But an incredibly capable platform. Right, so we've got the rear links on, nothing's binding, everything's moving fine. It's got quite thick shock oil and it's got a pen spring mod in it, so you won't see this thing flex quickly, but it's moving freely without any kind of stiction, and it's moving up and down nicely. And there we go, high clearance links. So just, whoa. Just to recap, the lower link has the knee at the back end of the truck, so that we're trying to provide as much clearance as possible. The fronts have their knee at the front of the truck, so that I can hopefully manage to get the chassis brace in. Now the chassis brace isn't going to fit where it did before, which is just here, just below these shocks. So I'm just going to move it to this cut out position and pop it in there. And I'm also going to do up these ones that are in the top brace, but I've just got to pop some Loctite on them first. So we'll just get those out and then put them back in. So that's great. So we'll put that in there. Go. So I've got the torque set quite low on this so it doesn't strip anything, so I'm just trying to be careful with it, which is why it keeps giving up a bit too early. But we'll just keep going. I'm okay with my forearms pushing on stuff. It's the constant turning of screwdrivers and things that causes me a lot of pain. Yeah, that's looking nice and straight, nice and tight. Yeah, get that brace on. So we're just moving the brace slightly further up in the chassis, and that'll just make sure that we've got bracing rather than removing it and then having an issue. I'd rather have one too many, you know, lightweight aluminium braces on there than one too few. I think the braces themselves, they weigh about 12 grams each, so moving it a few millimeters higher is not the end of the world. In fact, no, they're less than 12 grams. I think they're about 6 grams, so... Oh yeah, it's 12 grams with the stainless steel hardware. Which, you know, it's not too bad. Right, that's that. Try and locate that and then push it down a bit. The brace is just a bit high, so I'm just going to try and push it down. I'm going to turn the torque up on this because it just needs to get that done. Right. Great, that's one, and get this other one done. Right, cool. We are in business. Right, I'm going to turn my heater off, or turn it down at least, because I'm a bit warm. Got some water somewhere as well. Right, high clearance links, done. Dead easy. Northwest Scalar Designs Scattergun V2 chassis. High clearance links from GPM, super cheap. They're on tamaco.de, €6 a pack. I've managed to get away with using one pack and have some links spare, which means I've got a few more packs for if I break any of these links. And in fact, that's a good idea that I've just had that I've not told anyone. I'm going to put a pack of these links with the stuff that I take with me on Saturday for when I inevitably break one. Now those front links do need changing. What I'm going to be doing there is probably using the link mount locations that are on my in the works skid when the piece for the in the works skid arrives for me to put that back on. I have really liked this brazing skid that I got off Shapeways. It has lasted better than the in the works one, but that's because it's designed to hold the bigger motors. The downside of it though is the in the works one was completely flat, completely smooth on the bottom. This is flat, but it's got a bit of a hole for the transmission to go in, and it's got a bit of a hole for the drive shaft to move up and down in, and that's because it's replicating the TRX one's position, but just bringing it down. And to bring it down, it's sort of brought it underneath. The in the works one actually moves the transmission to the side and brings the motor round to the side, so the motor is lower. I'm not sure which one's better for my application, because I do have a super lightweight motor ready to go on sometime next week when Parcel Farce decide to release it to me. So we'll see. Yeah, I think wheels back on now. I've said this before on the channel, but I'll repeat myself. Get yourself a drill for putting your wheels on. Set it to not too strong, you know, a reasonable torque. I would say probably 1/3 of what the drill's capable of if it's a normal sort of 18-volt drill. You know, you don't want to over tighten anything straight off, but it should help. And then what I'll do is I'll just finish them off with just a standard driver. But it really makes putting your wheels on a lot easier. You can pretend you're in a Formula 1 team. Meow. Although there's no way I'll get these wheels on in like 2 seconds or whatever they do a pit stop in these days. Especially with my skills. I can barely get the wheel on. Crush washers, because it's SSD wheels and they're a funny shape. And the crush washer as well just helps put some pressure on the wheel nut. So if your wheel nut starts trying to back off, that crush washer that's sort of, or a spring washer they call them these days, is just putting some pressure against the threads to stop it from backing off too much. And I used to have issues with wheels coming loose, even though I'd tighten them up and put Loctite on. Since I've done the spring washer thing, never come loose. Which obviously means this weekend, while I'm filming, there'll be some footage of me losing a wheel, because that just seems to be how my week's going. But we have to be positive and think for the best. This is one way to see if your crawl is balanced. Can you just leave it on the table like that with wheels on? I'm not sure many of mine would normally let me do that, but certainly shows me that even with the huge lumpy axe system, it has a lot of balance. Right. Although to be fair, it doesn't have a shell on, but I might try it again when I've got the shell on. I'd have to drill the shell out as well, because I fixed it. That video is going live on Wednesday next week. So if you've got a shell that you've beaten to hell and you really like it and you don't want to give it up or change it, that video is going to be for you, because with a little bit of drywall tape and some impact glue, you can have your shell in one piece. I mean, it might not be the prettiest shell, but it will be in one piece. And if it's in one piece, you don't have to throw it away. So that's cool. Right. Yeah, with the pen spring mod and really light springs and everything else, this thing doesn't... I mean, it bounces because there's nothing actually absorbing what's going on. It's just smashing off the bump stops. And that's going to be my test of whether the new motor and ESC combo is a lot lighter, because when I do this, I'm expecting the front not to bounce so much, because the new motor and ESC are actually lighter than that motor itself. Just going to turn the heat up on my heater. Right, pinion. Where are my pinions? Right, here's a bag of pinions, and here's a bag of pinions. What are they? They are 32 DP 3175s, too small. They are too big. This thing would do wheelies if I put these pinions on. If I put an 18 tooth pinion on and swap to a 39 tooth spare with a 3300 kV motor, this thing's going to be doing about 15 miles an hour. which, you know, might be my style of climbing, but probably is a bit too fast. So I'm hoping, or at least I thought I had, some 10-tooth pinions. They might be in my trail box, which is here. Yes. So I love these pinions. These are the RW Racing pinions. They are really, really, really tiny, and they are really thinly machined, so try not to tighten them up too tight. I've found out the wrong way that they're very easy to have them shatter inside your truck. So we're just going to whiz out the motor mount. Now I've actually helicoiled the 3D printed motor mount and the 3D and the gearbox, so that can just use power tools to whip out the pinion and not worry too much about stripping the threads. It's still possible, but it's just made harder. And we are currently on a 12. Great. So that should come off relatively easy if I can find the right ones. So I need one of those and one of those. And it looks absolutely disgusting inside this thing, because it's essentially an open spur. So even though it's got the standard cover and motor mount, the brazing scale gearbox mount kind of has holes in it that lets dirt and crap get in there. So I'm glad I cleaned all the grease out of it, because it's gone a bit manky, but we'll live. We will live. And I'm just going to push my sort of improvised battery tray out the way a little bit, because it was just putting some pressure on the motor, and that was causing it to be a bit noisy, although not as noisy as some examples I've seen on Facebook recently. But I think, I was talking to them earlier today, I think they found that they'd got a egg-shaped spur, or a non-round spur, and so it was just making a hell of a noise, and it didn't matter what they did, it was just going to cause them pain. But you know, these things are sent to triers. The great thing about these RW Racing pinions as well is they have really long teeth on them, so you get to transfer loads of that lovely torque. Now I'm going down to a 10. I love the wheel speed, and when I'm doing general trailing I will have a 12 on there, so it will do somewhere between about 10 and 11 miles an hour from point to point. And because it's a censored brushless motor with the field orientated control, which actually I've learnt how that works, I might do a video on that. It has beautiful low speed resolution, but the startup RPM is still a bit too quick. So even though I can control it, the minimum startup is, I think it's about 360 RPM, which with that gearing means that the startup is just a little bit faster than I would like. And by changing this pinion and reducing that, it reduces the startup speed from about 0.2 miles an hour to 0.1 miles an hour, which is it's quite a significant difference. So we'll get that motor mount back on, and I will in my head tell myself off for saying so again. Sure, if the person who told me that is watching, he will be chuckling to himself right now. Right, that's all gone in fine, so we'll just tighten that back up. Turn the torque down on this, because even though I have got metal threads in there, we don't necessarily want to rip them to pieces. Oh, there we go. Great. Box of batteries. check the voltage so it's not too low. I mean, they all went on storage about a week ago, so it's not going to be too bad. 11.5, that must have been the one I was using last night. Great. So, I may as well just get it out of my system. Let's just turn that on. Right. Moment of truth. Oh, that's interesting. My transmitter is not bound to my receiver. That's that's bad news. Why is that then? Ah, that's because I tried to use this transmitter with my Orange RC receiver, and it's put the frame rate to a weird frame rate, which then means that these two can't pair. So that should. It's all back up and running. Right, so we should be able to get a nice slow crawl out of it. Doesn't sound right. And I know what I've done. I didn't change the motor clocking, so it's probably not meshed properly. Silly me. That's what you get for talking and working at the same time. So what I mean by the motor clocking, in case you don't have a Traxxas or you've never opened yours up, it's about the position of the motor in the motor plate, and it's on a clocked system rather than a slotted system. There we go. Just going to rescue a screw that I lost in the gearbox. Yeah, that's far too loose. Right. So I need to move this round 2 positions because I've taken 2 teeth out. That's all it is. So that one moves up 2, and that one moves down 2. And it'll be interesting whether this changes the centre of gravity of the motor. I'm guessing it will have a minor adjustment, but it's whether it puts the motor higher or lower. I would assume it moves the motor closer to the spur, but the way that these work is sometimes it moves it around the spur, and that's what we mean by clocking. So even though you're changing the position like a clock, what it actually means is where you've got your spur, your pinion's being moved in an arc around there to try and mesh properly. Fun facts that you didn't ask. Right. And that should also make sure this doesn't sound, awful as it goes in. I'll be able to tell straight away if the motor's lower, because it will move all of my wires and everything else. Yeah, that's actually lower. Fortunately, it's not touching on anything or stopping anything from extending, so that now shouldn't sound like it's trying to eat each other. You can also see my camera's getting low on battery, but it's lasted an hour, so that's not too bad. I went through 3 batteries in an hour and a half last time, so getting there. That feels like I might need to redo that metal thread helicoiling, I think it's called. Right. Oh yes, that's nice and quiet now. Right, what I'm going to do is use the throttle trim to see how slow we can make it start. Yeah. So the axe doesn't have the smoothest low speed startup. So that's about the slowest it can do. It seems to struggle with the sensor just a little bit. But it's good enough for me. You can probably tell I run the maximum punch, and I can do that because I've got 80C 220 milliamp batteries. But by running the maximum punch, it means I can sort of jump and dive around when I need to. That's quite cool. Yeah, everything's straight. Just trying to make sure the rears... Yeah, those links are straight. Must be the light. The way the light is, it makes it feel like it's slightly off, but they must be straight because the links are in the right place in relation to the chassis. So whatever I'm seeing on the shocks is just an illusion of the light. Oh, that's good though. Right, that's mechanically ready for the weekend. It got an absolute kicking last weekend and just carried on regardless. Everything's tight, everything's low. You know, that's it with the battery on. We'll sort out the shell and go from there. But I think we're about to lose a battery out of the camera, so I might have to jump up and swap batteries and then come back. And then spend the rest of the night looking at new cameras or trying to find a dummy battery. Right, are we back? Yeah, we're back. Right. So, no more live streams of over an hour and 10 minutes, I guess. What can you do? Oh yeah, there's a nice delay on that. I wonder if it picks it back up. There we go. Oh, lovely image of the back of my head. Right, I don't know why I've got this. Just need to turn it off. That's off. Right, the video that comes out next week is about fixing your shell, and it's about, you know, applying fiberglass and resin and things in order to make your shell not crack. So I just need to find my scalpel, which I've lost under the pile of things. Just going to trim off the glue, which I didn't do in the video because I had to do a second layer and I didn't really want to wait 48 hours to be able to get the video published. And, you know, watching me put glue on something twice, I don't know, would it make good viewing? I don't know, you tell me. Right, so there's, where it was cracked is now nice and full of glue, so that can have body posts back underneath it. There's a nice sort of impact glue encased bunch of fiberglass, so when an impact is applied to the body post, because these cracked individually, when an impact is applied to the body post, it should transfer that impact across the shell more, and hopefully not crack as badly. And because I've used a flexible glue and flexible fiberglass rather than the kind of resin filled cracking stuff, I'm hoping that will have an element of flex and an element of force cancellation. So what I'm going to do is grab a drill bit, drill that out and take it from there. It's a 5mm drill bit. I'm just going to go straight through. Oh. The drill bit I'm using is a wood drill bit, simply because they have sharpened tip on them. Let's put the drill all the way into drill mode. Have it on the slowest setting. I'm just going to find that hole. I've got nice bright studio lights. And that's it. And it's just basically pulling the resin, the glue apart. Just needs to be a big enough hole that I can squeeze a body post through. And the last one. Oh, just get that gunk off. There we go, sorted. Just going to get Allen key or hex driver, just push through those holes a little bit just to make sure they're big enough. Because it's a flexible bond, because it's glue, then it really doesn't matter too much. Because when I put the body posts on for the first time, if I can find those holes, then it's all good. There we go, one body post. The other one right there through, and then the front ones I just need to sort out. Right. Just can't quite get the post through the hole. Which is to be expected. My front posts I have like on a swivelling mount, so that should they smash through, they don't try and put additional pressure on the shell. So what I'm going to do is drill them from the other side and just make those holes a bit bigger. Here we go. Right, got one through, and just get this other one through, because once they've gone through the first time, I can get those body pins in. Just trim off any excess, make sure the body pins stay, and then I'm done. And then I'm ready for the weekend. I just have to come in tomorrow, charge some batteries, and go out and smash it all to pieces again and start again. Now on the video I do talk about the fact that by doing this you raise the height of the body slightly, but I've got away with it. It's raised by 1 or 2 mil, but by pushing the body pins in I can see that won't be an issue on the rear. On the front it's a bit harder. This body pin wants to go under the Lexan, so just going to try and force it through to try and get it to come through the top. Do the other side first. Right, I've got 3 out of 4. Just got to get this last one sorted, so I'm just going to trim out a bit of the glue. That's just stopping the pin from coming through properly. Oh. yeah, I've done a right number on this corner of the shell, so I think now that's made enough space that that's going to come through properly. Yeah, and that's it. We have 4 body pins in, we have a battery on, we have our high clearance links at the back. The clearance on the rear is insane. In fact, my only clearance issue now is the shell, but that'll just make a noise on the rocks. We've not increased our wheelbase enough to cause it to rub at all, which is absolutely fantastic. I have, because I keep switching the wheelbase of this, I have cut my wheel arches a bit too far forwards, and to be honest, with that little corner just there, just being lower than both my axle and my links, that's probably going to get a minor chop anyway, to just smooth the lines of these sides and just make it a big arch up. In fact, I was going to do that now. I may as well just get it done, and then I'm not worrying about it. So that's it. That is the truck ready for the weekend, where I will be tackling the hard lines at Armscliff again, and the weather is saying it's going to be dry. So with the weather claiming it's going to be dry, this is the UK after all, and our definition of dry is just light rain. If it is dry, I am going to have a lot of fun, and I absolutely love this scattergun. When I first put it together, I had a weird expectation, and I had to kind of not taper my expectations, but understand some of the other changes that other people were doing. And now I've started to understand a bit more and done some research. This thing performs so stupidly well that it just puts a huge smile on my face, and that's all you can ask, isn't it? If it's your hobby and you're smiling, then that's great. And just to show you the balance of this truck, you know, people talk about things tipping over, so I'm going to tip it, and the tip over point is there. But if I do this carefully and not smash my laptop to pieces, I can actually just leave it on its side. So it won't tip over and stay on its side, but the tip over point is practically sort of 80-90 degrees. On a side hill, we're talking, it gets to that kind of angle before it starts having issues. And if you can find a hill like that and drive along the side of it, then you're doing way better than I am. That's it, and yeah, that's with a battery in, so it kind of naturally can balance on its side, which my other crawlers couldn't because their weight was too high up. So, super low. If I hold onto the wheels, you'll see quite how low it's riding. For reference, the bottom of the skid is lower than the wheel nuts. That's how low I've got this. On a normal TRX, the bottom of the skid is somewhere around the top of the inner wheel, or the top of where the wheel is, not the tyre. Unless you've got that silly Mercedes thing that's got stupid Mercedes wheels, in which case they're a bit odd. Yeah, that's it. If you've watched all of this, you're mad, and thank you. And if you're just watching it on repeat or watching the end of it, please chuck any comments in, watch some of my other videos, come back. I'm going to keep live streaming because it's actually really, really cathartic and a lot of fun. Thanks again, and hopefully you'll be seeing some footage from Saturday. Cheers.